Good morning. Thank you for joining us for this digital workshop series, part 2. This session is part of our 4-part series with the Active Web Group, and our focus today will be on website considerations. Today's presenter, you can see on screen, is Frank Correo from the Active Web Group, where he is their Senior Digital Strategist and Marketing Manager. I'm your moderator, Renee Goodnow from the New York Small Business Development Center. Today's host is the Mid-Hudson Small Business Development Center. They are part of the New York SBDC's network of 22 campus-based centers and outreach offices located across New York State. The New York SBDC is a U.S. Small Business Administration resource partner. Our free services, like this webinar, are made possible by funding from the SBA, New York State, and our host campuses. And Frank, we're going to dive right in here because I know you have so much to cover. So I'll drop a few notes in the chat for folks on anything I might have missed during jumping on here, but I think we're in good shape to get going. I'll turn it over to you.
All right, fantastic. Welcome again, guys. Last week we talked about branding, and branding was a little bit, I understand for some it might have been a little bit elementary, but it's important to build on these pieces to become one whole 360 piece of development. Some of the things I'm going to discuss in this meeting, this presentation, you'll see next week. I'm going to discuss some of that further. So when we start to talk about digital marketing, things nuts and bolts of a website that then correlate to great SEO, great pay-per-click strategies, great call to actions. That's going to happen next week. So you're going to see some of the vernacular that happens this week and the previous kind of build on itself. So without further ado, this is Website 101. Again, my name is Frank Correo from Active Web Group. It's activewebgroup.com. Okay, so the first thing I always ask clients or potential clients when they come on board is, why do you need a website? What are you looking to achieve, or what are you looking to do when you build a website? Now, again, this is assuming you don't have a website. We'll discuss if you have a website, but it's not converting, it's not bringing in sales, it's not bringing clients or prospects. What do I do? We're going to talk about that. But if you essentially need a website, let's say you just opened up a store, you opened up a bakery, do you need a website? That's going to be a question you're going to want to ask yourself. The answer is typically 9 times out of 10, yes, you do need a website or some kind of landing page or presence on the internet. But with that being said, what do you need a website and why do you need a website? What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to be someone who gets leads? So you have potential clients fill out a form, an inquiry form. Let's say I am a plumber and I'm trying to field requests for homeowners to get some work. So they would fill out a form, they would ring my phone. The other way is I'm a shopping website. So you're going to go on and buy product directly on my website. And those are really essentially, they're all inclusive of your KPIs. So these are your key performance indicators or your measurable factors that tie into your business needs or goals. There's a whole execution strategy. We're going to dive more into that next week when we talk about the digital marketing strategies or guides. But your key performance indicators will help you justify what you're trying to do and accomplish on the internet. Again, as I said previously, I am trying to get leads or I'm trying to get sales. Now, as I said previously, a lead generation site versus an e-commerce site. These are the two most common websites you see out there. So form submissions. These are people trying to request a quote, contact for more information, provide the opportunity for prospects to leave their contact information, and also for you to nurture them. So you would send them subsequent follow-up emails. They would go into your CRM, your lead magnet, your lead generation system, that would go to your sales team. And then you'd have some automation sequences there where you have your email marketing, you send them a thank you for subscribing, then you send them a newsletter, you send them a give to get, and then you send them some kind of offer. We'll talk about email shortly. Clicks and calls, so clicking on the phone number above the hero image. We're going to talk about that shortly in CRO as well, but that could be a goal conversion. So you have different goals on your website. Your tier 1 goal would be your form submission. Tier 2 would be your phone number. Tier 3 might be an email if they click on the email link to email you. So you have different tiers of goals on the website. Sessions. These are qualified site traffic that comes to your website, and then the cost per lead. So the cost per lead here could be relevant to pay-per-click. Every time someone clicks on my ad in Google, it costs me 50 cents. Someone clicks on there, they get 2 pages deep, and then they fill out a form. For every 100 consumers I have that click on my ad, 20 of them then fill out a form, so I have a 20% conversion rate. E-commerce site. So your conversion rate, as I just said, how many people are going on there and converting to buying a product? So I had an ad, 100 people clicked on that ad and went to my site. 20 of them, they went and bought a product on my website. So that would be your conversion rate. Your shopping cart abandonment. So here, this is when someone abandons your shopping cart in the process. They're going through your website, they're buying things, but then they just don't complete the order. A lot of times I'll find e-commerce sites that don't have an abandoned shopping cart email. Hey, did you miss something? Here's 10% off your order, some kind of gift to get. It's important to set up those nurture emails, but the abandoned shopping cart could have various reasons related to your CRO or your conversion rate optimization on your website. So if it's the navigation is tricky to get to on a mobile device, for example, you notice that most of your shopping carts get abandoned, 90% of them, let's say, from a mobile device. That could be because your site's a little slow on a mobile device or it's hard to navigate. So these are things and metrics to start to look at. We're gonna unpack a lot of this shortly. Your average order value, your AOV. This is your average amount when I order something online. Let's say average consumer spends $100 on my website. So the average ticket per order. Customer lifetime value, or your CLV. How many times a consumer is going to go back to your website and make a purchase? Through the life cycle of a consumer. This is a little trickier to diagnose or get into. It's something that certainly be ascertained, but it could be important to you. Let's say you are an online, and we're seeing more of this, an online fitness studio, right? Where you have some kind of membership adoption. Let's say you're HelloFresh, right? Then you would want to know what your customer lifetime value is. And I believe it's 10 weeks. So you'd want to know that, that will help you to understand a nurture cycle or nurture patterns. When should I start setting subsequent email cycles for my consumer when I think they're going to start to fall off the bandwagon, right? So it's probably a week 7 for HelloFresh, right? You start to get some more coupons and things like that. Things start to get cheaper again. So it's important to know that, especially if you're more of a subscription-based model. Okay, so platforms. There are a lot of platforms for building websites. I'm not going to teach you how to build a website. That's not the purpose of this. Again, my purpose here is to educate you guys on the tools and tricks and tips out there for when you either build a team, you have some education, you're attempting to do it yourself, you hire an agency, whatever you're trying to do here. I'm going to teach and educate you on the tools and the things that are potentially out there. So the platforms that are currently out there, there are 2 types. There's the freemium model, right? And the freemium model are, there's a lot of them. Some of them are pretty robust. Some of them are a little bit lacking. So the pros here on freemium is they're great hobby websites. 9 times out of 10, you're knitting or you have a niche photography portfolio. Fantastic for something like a Squarespace or a Weebly or a Wix. They're easy to publish quickly to a degree. You could drag and drop things. The editor is pretty simplistic, and the freemium side, the freemium model for most of them, they do get a little more advanced when you start to have a payment gateway. You start to pay monthly for a subscription, you pay yearly. Simple drag and drop CMS, as I said. And then they do have virtual support typically. 9 times out of 10, most of them don't have somewhere you could call, but they do have like a chat feature, or you could place a ticket and they'll get back to you within an allotment of time. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. It just depends on how deep-rooted your problem is. I do, for example, with Shopify, notice that there's some problems with the customer support on the freemium side. Cons, there is no phone support. I'm a guy, I like to pick up the phone and talk to people, and I'm sure most of you guys are as well. So I can't diagnose my problem quickly. Somewhere like say what you want about something like GoDaddy, they do have good customer service in that you could pick up the phone and call them quickly. So they don't really have that phone support. So that instantaneous trying to get something furnished quickly might be problematic for you. So let's say you have a Shopify website and you're selling goods, and you're on any given day you'll sell between $1,000 to $5,000 worth of product, right? If your shopping cart isn't working, now you got to wait 48 hours, maybe longer if it's the weekend, to hear back from somebody. That could take dollars out of your pocket. So something to consider. A la carte pricing can become costly, and this is my biggest gripe with some of these services. So Shopify, again, for example, not to pick on them, but they're kind of the big boy here out of all these now. So Shopify, you pay, let's say, $200 to $300 for a theme, right, that you install. The first thing to note is you only get the home page really that you can make modified changes to. The rest of them you need to know a little bit about programming, so to speak. So you have liquefy files that are in there in the source code, and you have to be able to change those things around. So there's some knowledge that needs to be known. The second thing, and the biggest gripe here, is everything is a subscription. So if you want to add a Google reviews feed to your website, that might cost you $10 a month. You want to add an Instagram feed, might cost you $10 a month. So every single little nugget that you want to add to your website will cost you extra, which isn't true for some other things I'm going to get into momentarily. Some have limited customization, right? So you're limited on because they're freemium models like Wix and Weebly. You're kind of limited on your what you could do in terms of design. And if you have a robust brand like we just previously talked about last week, that might be problematic for you because you have a specific typefaces, specific color treatments. The way visually a consumer interacts with your imagery or your visual vanguard is unique to you, right? And your identity, your visual system. And you can't really do that with those. So, you can be limited there. But typically they do have pretty good CRO, pretty good navigational structure out the box. I've seen it deteriorate over time with people building websites themselves, but the initial templates or themes aren't too bad in terms of usability. Lack of advanced marketing tools is huge. There's certain tools that you won't have on some of these. Let's say you wanted to send out an email nurture cycle. You have to get a third-party integration or something like that for some of these, like Squarespace, Wix, or Weebly. You can't even send out a singular email. They're non-scalable for growing businesses, and this is important to note. Some of them get you to a certain place, but then they have a bandwidth or a limit to traffic pattern. So you can only get X amount of people on the site, or you can only get X amount of forms filled out, or you get X amount of products before then they put a cap on that, and then they charge you more in your revenue. Then you have brand badges, which is, you'll have the Shopify logo on the bottom or the Squarespace logo, which makes it feel like it's Squarespace's brand and not yours. And then the monthly subscription thing is, one of my biggest thing. Over time, monthly subscriptions will kill you. And everything now is becoming subscription based. It's wild. And I'm not just talking here in, terms of digital marketing. Everything is becoming subscription based. So, and that stuff will add up rather quickly. So if you see that, okay, my website here, I'm going to get a Shopify website, they're going to charge me 3% plus 2% of my gross revenue and payment gateway and then processing fees. And then I have to pay $300 for the theme initially. If there's any upgrades, I have to pay for that. And then every time I want to plug in and I need like 15 of them, I need one for my CRM, etc. It's $10 a month. Now you've spent at least a couple grand. You could have then gotten, a more professional option. So you have to weigh those pros and cons when trying to figure out which model is perfect for you. Okay, now let's talk about some of the professional models. And some of the professional models, I'm not here to tell you which one to do, but I will say if you have over 1,000 products that you're selling, maybe 800 to 1,000, a freemium Shopify site or something to that degree, you might not be for you if you have a lot of SKUs. You're going to want something more professional, something more robust. If you are the pizzeria down the block and the only thing you care about is someone finding your phone number and you're just trying to rank for things on in Google, which again, that's next week's conversation. But if that's your goal, you could probably get away with a Squarespace type of site. However, getting it designed properly and executed properly might be another concern. So it just depends on your model and what you're trying to do traffic-wise. But professional websites, things that come to mind for me is Magento, WordPress, custom built site, custom program sites, and the Shopify Pro, which is a new one. So you have professional products start to finish. Really, this is the creative side of it. Anything you could think of in terms of brand strategy or brand execution, you could do. You want to make an image flip 360 and do something wild, you could do that, because you have a development programming behind you. You're not locked into someone's template or theme. You have real personal support depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it. If you're going with a web team, a viable web team, they're always going to be around to help you. Custom solutions to match your brand, which we just talked about. Most of these, and this is a big one for me as a digital marketer. So within Active Web Group here, we have a web development team and a design team. I am on the digital marketing team. So I'm the guy who handles the SEO, pay-per-click. I'm the ROI guy, as I say. So in terms of that, all the websites we design or develop come out the box ready to be indexed by Google, MSN, Bing, etc., all the big search engines. So any web developer or web team that's worth their weight in gold will do this for you. Do a one-time SEO setup that will really start to get the ball rolling in terms of ranking. There's a lot more to do, which we'll talk about next week, but that is a good pro there, for me anyway. The user experience and messaging can be customized, as we said. The cons now, the initial upfront cost can be larger. So as opposed to the subscription-based model, which you're paying over time, this just has more of an upfront cost probably because you have to pay a team to do it. And they can be more expensive than the models. But the good news is you own that. So, and that's the biggest thing I want to say here is with Shopify, Squarespace, you don't own that. You can't take that and bring that to another platform. That's there in the freemium model. With a lot of these sites, you could take the front end design of the site if you built something custom, and you can apply it to another platform. You want to take your custom program site, which we've done in the past, and apply it to a WordPress, so you have that WordPress backend, that WordPress engine. That's something that can be done. So keep that in mind. You don't necessarily own some of that stuff within a freemium model. Okay, now as I say, the best approach is to ask questions with a lot of this stuff, and a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about moving forward here is you want to really ask yourself some of these questions. And the biggest question that I always think is, who's my end user? Am I someone B2B, business to business, that I'm Active Web Group and I'm looking for other businesses? Am I B2C? I am Frankie's Pizzeria looking for consumers to enjoy my delicious pizza. So the best approach is always to start asking that question. Once you know that question, and I believe this is something we dove into last week, once you start formalizing a profile of your consumer, then from there that will start to plug in a lot of the answers to some of these questions, right? Okay, so I am a B2B, I'm business to business. Okay, they are probably, the first thing, as I said, is they might be searching on a Microsoft computer 9 to 5. They're going to be 9 to 5 because Monday through Friday, right? If I only do business on the East Coast, then I know it's exact Eastern Standard Time, 9 to 5, right? Whereas California, who's behind us, I have to have some lag time for that because they're going to wake up a little later. They're going to finish their day a little later. So that will tell me a couple things. It's going to tell me when and what time to run my ads, the best time to set up an email, when should I time a pop-up on my website? We're talking about websites here. Regarding traffic, when will I have the most traffic? And that will tell me other things, So knowing that and knowing the answers to those questions will start to kind of paint a picture for you there. Okay, now let's talk about domains, because not all domains are created equal here. One of the first things I suggest when you build a brand or you're thinking about brand nowadays, and this wasn't true, 15, 20 years ago, is you'll want to think about the domain. So you're seeing a lot of brands now that are a little crazy and out there, Cheese Factory or something like that, and that will be like a law firm. You're seeing a lot more unique and niche names for brands. The reason being starts with the domain structure. They can't really get a lot of these domains anymore. Like I can't get homemadecheese.com. I can't get cheese law firm or whatever kind of jokey thing I just said. There's things that I can't necessarily get. So I have to be a little more creative in my strategy, my brand strategy, my approach to that. So what you want to do is I usually start with one of those buying services like a GoDaddy. I'll just type it in the browser over there in GoDaddy and see if it's available, frankie'spizzeria.net or something, .com. If it's not available, I'll think of something a little more creative. Maybe that then parlays into my overall, what the name of my brand is, right? And that affects my logo and all that stuff. So make sure that the domain is available for you to purchase. I do get asked .com versus .net, and there's some others, .New York City if you're in NYC, different regional ones. So for me, .com versus .net, I don't know so much that it matters. I rather have the .com only because it feels more trustworthy to a lot of end users. For me, being a little bit more savvy, and what I do here, it doesn't matter so much. But for some people, it might. So keep that in mind when looking for your domain. And I will say they have professional domains. Those are the premium ones that you'll see are like a couple grand or more. That's because it's short words. Um, cheeseproducts.com. That's going to be an expensive domain. Um, and if that is an expensive domain, one that will help you because it's shorter, right? It's shorter, it's punchier, it's easier to remember. So it's better for the consumer. It might be worth its weight in terms of marketing dollars and marketing spend to acquire a more premium domain. And also when you think in terms of SEO, Google's going to quickly understand what that is, and that might help you a little bit in terms of ranking. Now, before I start talking about hosting, I will say when you acquire a domain, important to get an SSL certificate. That's that little encryption thing. You'll see the lock on the left-hand side. Google and some of these other browsers are just completely phasing out that you don't have an SSL. So it's important when you acquire your domain and you acquire your hosting, it comes with an SSL certificate. Now with hosting, you want to be aware of cheap or shared hosting. So this relates to a couple things. This comes back to me in terms of digital marketing, and I keep saying next week, but next week is the big grill here. We're going to talk a lot about this ROI stuff. So in terms of hosting, if you buy the cheapest hosting plan, right? You get it from GoDaddy, it's the cheapest one. You might fall into a trap now that you've exceeded your bandwidth limit, the amount of users that can visit your website. Or your website in general is going to be slow. Maybe it's slow on a mobile device. That's going to in turn affect your bounce rate. People go on your website, it's slow, it lags, nothing is loading. They're getting out there and they're going to the next listing that they saw on Google. So this could be like one of the things in determining factors for you to get a conversion. Get someone to buy a product, get someone to fill out a form. Don't let that do that for the couple of dollars that it's going to cost you to make sure you have the adequate hosting for the amount of traffic you get. So make sure that's the case when you're looking into this. That's the biggest mistake that I see here. Shared hosting does have one hosting platform for thousands of sites. So it's going to be hard for you to kind of fit in there and get the appropriate bandwidth you need. So make sure that you have the appropriate hosting, as I said. WordPress sites typically require managed WordPress hosting. They give you 24/7 support and certain things that are optimized just for WordPress, certain security patches. With WordPress, things have to be updated frequently, otherwise you might fall into a security patch problem. So the hosting kind of will help you with that. And stage sites. So this is important for you when you're developing a website. See this a lot too in amateur world. People will buy a domain, they'll have a website, they'll then build that website on the live WW. So frankie'spizza.com, I'm working on the website, it's live. Have a staging or development site that comes with the hosting. This way you can make changes and you could have a duplicate of your website. So let's say you want to test something, you want to test a new menu. You don't have to do this on your live site. You can do it on your staging site. And that's typically what we do as web developers. So have a staging site if possible. Okay. Email addresses. Email addresses fall in line with websites. So this is more true for your beginner entrepreneur, someone who's just opening up shop. But it's a big gripe of mine. A lot of times I'll see someone with a nice domain, frankie'spizza.com, but my website, my email address will be frankie742funtime at yahoo.com. When you hand out a business card, when you have something tangible, whenever you have your a link to your email address, make sure you have you get a couple emails with your hosting and with your domain for emails. So you could, I think with GoDaddy, for example, when you purchase your domain, it comes with one or two email addresses. A lot of people make them about or at, say hi at frankie'spizza.com, something like that, just a general one. But if you're only one employee or you're a sole practitioner, you could say it's Frankie at frankie'spizza.com. So make sure you take the time to get that. If you want to add email addresses, typically they don't cost a lot of money. They're anywhere from $2 to $6 ish. a month, depending on how robust you get. So that could really change the game for you in terms of feeling professional. Okay, back to design the website ecosystems here. So when developing and designing a website, a lot of you guys are probably asking me, well, I don't know what looks good. I don't know what a good website is, and is there a strategy here in terms of conversion? Are all sites created equal? The answer to all that is no. So your website essentially, as we talked about the rule of thirds and things bouncing up and down a page, right? With tangibility, tangible design. With a website, you're going to end up with good design UX and bad UX. So I usually start with a good, strong logo. We'll put something in the top left corner. I always do left to right, because here in the US, we read left to right. I want to start out with my logo. I want people to know where they are. The next thing I'll say about the logo, and a big gripe of mine, is in the navigation, don't put the word home. That's just a waste of real estate there. Whenever I make changes to someone's website, it's one of the first things I always omit. The logo will tell you to go home. That's common UX nowadays. If you have like 50 things in your navigation, that's something you can eliminate right out the gate. I always include in the masthead or before the navigation, I always include a CTA, which 9 times out of 10 will be a phone number or a link to a portal, a login portal, or a contact us today, which will jump down to a form. That's always got to be included there. So the first 2 things you see is I see my brand, and then I see a conversion point, right? Then after, I have my clean navigation. Something I always see is hamburger menus. I have an example here. So this is a website example. This is called a hamburger menu with the 3 dots, the 3 lines. What they've done is they've nested their navigation to have a flyout here for that. If I don't understand anything about user experience or modern user journey, I'd have no idea that was the navigation, right? A lot of your consumers are going to feel that way too. So this is horrible. This is a navigational cue for a mobile device. If you go on most websites on a mobile device, you'll see the hamburger menu, which will then drop down and give you a more less condensed version of the menu. And there might be flyouts from there. An example of what a flyout is, if you go to here, there's a flyout, right? So that is for a mobile device. Don't put that on a desktop computer. You want your website to be responsive or adaptive. We'll talk about that, but don't change your navigational structure, or bring a cue from your mobile interface to your desktop interface. And that might become a conversion factor. As I said, if you're a B2B, you're a business to business company, right? You're doing business with other businesses. If let's say I'm going to your website 9 to 5, I'm interested in your law firm for my corporate law needs. It's a hamburger menu on a desktop computer. I didn't understand it. I X'd out, and I went to the next guy that I was Googling law firms, corporate lawyers near me. So again, that CRO, that conversion that little UX point could be the be all the end all in terms of conversion. So have clean, concise navigation. Put the most important elements first. If you look here at the active web group site, as I said, logo, then you have request quote button, then you have the phone number that's clickable, and you click on a mobile device. Beautiful. Let's go to this one. I don't know what I'm looking at. How do I get in touch with these people? So again, proper navigation, route navigation is going to be important. Okay, so we talked about the navigation. Images. So let's talk about this portion of the website. This is your hero image. Your hero image is going to have your most important call to action. Think about a newspaper. You have what's called above the fold. I'm going to jump around here. You have what's above the fold and below the fold, right? So your most important thing that's above the fold, the first thing you see in that magazine rack when you look at that newspaper before you fold it and get to the other underside of that newspaper, the first thing you're going to see is the most important headlines of today. So for your website, before I scroll with the hero image, I want to have the most important CTA. Who are you? What are you about? What do you do? Why am I on this website? Give me that in a large bold thing with a couple words, a full service digital marketing agency, for example, here. And then below that, you'd have a byline of copy, a sentence or two that explains that headline. The next thing I'll say is it's important to have a secondary or an initial call to action within there that will go to a shop now, or a shop category. Or we'll have, in our case, I have a short form there. If you look, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 conversion points, and I didn't go anywhere on the website yet. That's no mistake. So when you're creating your website, you want to figure out the least path of resistance for a consumer to convert, whether it be filling out a form or buying something online, before they go down and get to the guts of your website. Okay, back to it. Okay, so we talked about the hero image. Now, some people will do sliders. You got to imagine with sliders, I'm not a fan. If you can't say what you need to say in your first slide, say it somewhere else in the website. You can't assume that someone's going to sit there like they're waiting for the train, waiting for these slides to pass. They're going to get to slide 10 and then click on that one. You're going to see people not going to those pages. You're going to see less and less visitors to those pages, the subsequent pages that you have the sliders on. So 2 might be okay if you're running, let's say, a Black Friday promotion or something wild, but traditionally I like to keep it to 1. The other thing I will say is when you have a hero image, if you could avoid making it a video, don't make it a video. Sometimes it works. I have a client that they work in the boating arena, right? They sell boating equipment, and they have a beautiful video of boats on the water with their products, glamour shots of it. It looks great. It slows the website down like hell. That in turn could be a conversion factor, but we're weighing the pros and cons of that by showcasing the products with as little real estate as we possibly can. What we've done there to make me happy is we've omitted that on the mobile device. So that is adaptive design. It's adapting to the technology where we're moving the point that's becoming a problem. But it's showing on desktop because you have more real estate. You're on you're linked to usually Wi-Fi, or you're hardwired in, so the chances of getting a bounce there is significantly less. And that's something we looked at the data and ascertained that, so it made sense to do that, and it was okay to do that. But you really want to make your site as fast as humanly possible. People want to get to where they need to go as quickly as they can. Okay, so we talked about that. Visual elements and visual cues, right? So here I'm following, doesn't do it as well as I'd liked, but if you follow on Active Web Group here, we're taking visual cues throughout this orange and this blue to follow the brand ecosystem. So you get to our byline, what we're about, right? And then you go into the services that we have. I do have little animatics that are done with HTML, right? That can be done, and that's something that won't slow down your website as much. But as I said, if you don't really understand HTML5, you don't have that ability there, or you have no way to do that, don't place any animatics on your website. Don't bother with it. There's a CTA midway through the website, so that's important. So I had 3 conversion factors. I had my 4th one that's following you around the website over here. Then I had the Connect with Us button right there that happens midway through the site. So you get fatigue on the website. There's form fatigue where there's too many lines on the form. What's your social security number? Where did your mother go to college? Your great-great-grandmother, what color hair did she have? These are things that are not important to the sales cycle. And you get form fatigue where people will just drop off and stop filling out the form. So less is more with that. You need the phone number, an email address. If you're doing some direct mail, maybe a direct mail, a snail mail address, first name, last name, maybe what the title is. That's probably it. That's probably too much. Whatever your sales team needs to make the contact, that's what you should put in there. Okay. Then you scroll down, got more CTAs, etc. There's another form, and things drop down to this form on the website. Then I have a newsletter form, and then I have another contact us link. So having as many goal conversion points as you can is going to be paramount in success. You also want on every single page on your website to have a conversion point, and this is a big miss that I see. So here I have a short form, right? Then I have request a quote. Then I have a form that's tidally locked to my footer. So this is going to be on every single page of my website. So again, having those conversion factors, giving everyone the opportunity to convert. Okay. Now, you have two different types of websites, essentially. You have responsive websites. These are your websites that are going to respond to the device, right? So in this case, I'm looking at an iPhone that it has all the elements here that you're seeing. It has this portion similar to, this has a lot of common elements that are the website, the Active Web Group website I just showed you. You know, simple, clean navigation, easy to convert, get started was important to them. They have a button. All the colors are following their brand guidelines. Looks like they use a lot of white space, so they're following that through in their imagery. Their imagery is light and airy. Then they have that CTA there that's following that brand color. Looks like then they have icons that then has a midway point that you can click on and get more information, so you're not getting fatigued on the website. And I'm certain they have a form submission because it's a beautifully done website. So if you're looking at this though, all those elements are the same on all types of devices, whether you're on a MacBook, you're on an iMac desktop computer, or you're on some kind of mobile tablet. They're all the same. That's a responsive device. The elements are just stacking to meet the needs of that device. Now, there's also adaptive websites. Adaptive websites are websites that they'll strip out elements. As I said with that video, that's adaptive. It's omitting that on a mobile device to accommodate for the device that it is. So if I was to eliminate this this CTA here, or this byline of, I'm sure it's the who they are, what they do. If I'm to eliminate that on a mobile device, that then becomes an adaptive website. So if there are elements that you want to have, the good use case I gave you is in terms of a video for whatever particular reason, that would then become an adaptive website, and there's a need for that. Okay, we talked about site speed. Site speed will impact your rankings. Google will say it's going to take too long to crawl your website, and then they're just going to not rank you ahead of your competition. This could be the factor that impacts that. This could also cause that drop in users, the bounce rate, as I said, when a user is visiting your website and they're not able to get anything to load, so they X out. The other thing to mention is Google AMP. So in some cases, this is valuable still. So with Google, it's a Google product, so Google loves Google products, right? They're gonna rank you ahead of everybody if you're using a Google product. So what Google AMP does is it strips out all the common elements on your website. It essentially just makes it like a more visual Word document. This could be important if you're an informational website. You have a lot of legal stuff. You're a doctor's office and you have some stuff on there. This will make your website load as fast as humanly possible, but you got to keep in mind the design ethos of it. That might be a problem. So, give and take there. Another thing to consider is ADA. It's the Hearing and Visual Impairment Act. So your website needs to meet guidelines for that. There are some tools to use that kind of help that along that you could put together. Let's see. I think we have. Yep. So you could change out certain things. So for us, let's say you you have some seizure issues with colors, so we'll change the color pattern. You want to make it friendly for your ADHD profile, so you're only focused on these things. So there's a lot of cute things you could do there with that. There are certain guidelines for the ADA. There are essentially 3 different guidelines. Most websites fall into the middle of that, but you should do something to meet with the Hearing and Visually Impaired Act. This way you're not liable to get sued. And then the same thing is true for the California Website Privacy Law Act, or the overseas version. And these laws aren't so straightforward. So if you do X amount of business in the state of California versus you have X amount of traffic, these things could have you fall in line with that law. And a lot of other states are starting to adapt it. And what it says is that you store personal information, and here's what you do with it. Again, I keep going back here. Let me exit all this. And now I'm stuck with it. Okay, so if you see this, for example, this is your terms and conditions. This is becoming more and more common to have some kind of pop-up for that. So you want to have some kind of legal clause there that explains that this way you're not susceptible to any lawsuits. There are businesses, there are lawyers now going around just randomly haphazardly suing people for this. So try to meet these guidelines. You know, if you have a web presence, it's something you want to look at and make sure you're covering yourself on. Okay, now we're gonna start to get a little bit into digital marketing, but not too much because I don't want to spoil any of the fun next week. But some of it is important in terms of your main website, your main focal point, talking about just websites overall. So you have your tracking. So a lot of people will say, well, I've been doing digital marketing on my website for X amount of time, but they have no tracking methods. We've already talked about this a little bit last week. So, you know, what does your traffic look like? How many visitors are going to your site in X amount of time? What does that look like year over year or month over month? Are you in a growth phase? Are you in a decline? Does it look like you have some kind of algorithm update? Conversation for next week. Did you hit some kind of weird anomaly where you're not ranking anymore? If your traffic pattern dwindled, what platform was it on? You know, was it from organic? Was it direct traffic? Was it referral traffic? Again, going to talk about all these things, but was it one of those things that caused a dip in traffic? So if you have Google Analytics set up on your website, it's a little piece of source code that you get that you then set up in Google. If you have that set up with all your goals proper, you'll know how many people clicked on the form or clicked on your phone button or clicked to learn more. What are your most important pages on your website? So in terms of conversion rate optimization, if I see the most people visit the about page, right? If I notice most traffic is coming in from the about page instead of the home page, but I don't have a call to action there. I don't have a form submission there. There's no button, there's no anything. It's just an about, and no one's converting on my website. That might lead you somewhere that you need to start putting conversion points on some of those ancillary pages, starting with that about page since it's the most popular one. So being able to diagnose that will kind of, you know, will help you in terms of conversion. Okay, so a CRM, a customer relationship management tool. This is Salesforce here, an example of a Salesforce dashboard. But I find a lot of companies, especially let's say you have, you know, a robust sales cycle where they fill out a form, you then send them an email, you then call them on day 3, you then do this, you then do that. Eventually, there's a direct mail piece. If you have all these things that happen and you have a sales team or some kind of sales liaison, or you're just even by yourself and you just, you know, you're overworked and you don't know what to do and you're not making sales because you can't make calls, a CRM will help you with this. And these are linked to your website. So from your first conversion factor all the way over to your last, you know, form submission, etc. That's going to then dump into your CRM, maybe spit out a couple of emails, nurture emails to the consumer, and that's going to help you in your, you know, in your automation process in order to convert a prospect into a sale. Okay, now I'm not going to go so heavy here on how to get visitors and sales. I just want to give you a little taste of this for next week on purpose because all this stuff starts to kind of go into each other now. It's starting to get interwoven a little bit. You saw when I was talking about brand and colors, how that impacts the visualization on your website, which then impacts the conversion factors on your website, which now that we're going to start talking about digital marketing and how to get visitors and ROI and all that, why does all this stuff matter is going to become a question. But channels, so channels are an important thing. As I said, platforms are channels. Platforms typically in terms of marketing could be a lot of things. They could be tangible, so you could be talking about a billboard, or I could be talking about a direct mail piece, or I could be talking about my pay-per-click strategy or my social media strategy. But when you get into channels traditionally you're talking about what's related to my digital marketing footprint. These are some of them, you know, from organic SEO onwards. We're going to get into those next week, but knowing the word channels is going to be important here. Okay, then you have your overall strategy for various things. Here's an example of what your SEO strategy looks like, right? Again, conversation for next week, but when we start to talk about HTML, how your code is structured for your website. From a navigational standpoint, your blog. Okay, so you have a blog on your website, important to have when building your website because it gives you a reason to continually write content, which then will be anchored and linked in search. Hopefully it's going to index, and then from there, Google's going to read that and say, oh, he keeps talking about pizzerias on Long Island. He must be a pizzeria on Long Island. So then when someone types in pizzerias on Long Island, he might come up. And then there's more to that, but that's the that's the elementary version of why you need a blog. So those two things are going to impact your overall SEO quote unquote score, or where you rank. Pay-per-click becomes important for a website because landing pages. So whenever you set up an ad within Google, or set up an ad in MSN, Bing, or one of those things, you do something on social media, you're going to want them to land somewhere. And as specific to your promotion as you could get is better, as good as you possibly could get in order to get somebody to convert. So if I'm running a Black Friday sale, they click on my website, it just goes to my homepage. Maybe there's a little mention about Black Friday, but maybe not. If I would have had a landing page that was just specific to the products that I'm selling for Black Friday, I might get somebody to convert. So when you're setting up these campaigns, and you're setting up your website, keep unique landing pages in mind. Social media, regarding websites, there's a lot to that. You can have, as I said, a little widget or a module on your website that has a carousel for your social media platforms. You could also, you should link to all your social media platforms on your website. I see that as a mistake. You put them in the footer, or if it's important to you, you can put them above the header and the rocker of your website. So having those social media platforms linked 360 from your website on backwards is going to be vital for you in your overall ecosystem. Email marketing we talked about, so setting up that CRM and having a nurture strategy in place. Now, when you set up your email strategy, as I said, start asking yourself questions. Simple question: am I selling products online? If the answer is yes, you need to start thinking about things like your order's on its way. Thank you for your order. Abandoned shopping cart. How was your order? So you get like a review. I get a lot of clients asking about, hey, how come I don't get any reviews on my website? Well, because you don't nurture those reviews. You have to nurture those things. So email is a good way to do nurture marketing. I also see a lot of people that are heavy-handed with promotional marketing, email marketing. It's a big no-no. Why would I just open up your email all the time if you just tell me there's a sale, and there's a sale every damn day? And I know you all see that in your inbox. What happens if I just send you like a newsletter every once a month? The third of every month, I'm going to send you a newsletter about what's going on with my business. Frankie's Pizza is now making a really good lasagna pizza. I'm not marketing anything. I'm just telling you about my pizza. I'm telling you about the happenings around myself and the community. That might entice you to open up the email and interact with my brand more, which may in turn have you think about me when you're thinking about pizza. So keep nurture email marketing in mind. Every third position can be a sales position, but don't make every single position a sales position, because you're going to lose people clicking on your emails over time. Okay, and that's essentially websites in a nutshell. Again, there's you start diving in and getting deep water. HTML5, the Flash going away. There's a lot to it in terms of websites, and I didn't want this seminar to be about how to make a website. I want it to be what to look for in a good website. So I hope that is orchestrated. But yeah, I'll open it up to any questions now.
Thank you so much, Frank. I'm just getting a few of them pulled up. One of the questions that did pop up was if you work for us, Frank. Do you want to talk about the active web group for a second while I get some of these questions pulled up for you?
Okay, sure. If I work for the SBDC?
Yep.
I do not work for the SBDC.
We wish you did.
Everyone seems like a great group. I do not. So I work for Active Web Group. We're a full-service digital marketing firm in Long Island, New York, in Hauppauge. Been in business for over 20 years. I've been there for over 3 now as a digital marketing manager. My background and role over time is I've spent a lot of time in brand marketing. For me, I spent a lot of time as a creative director and art director. But more recently, I've gotten into more ROI marketing. For me, it's I was more interested in the numbers, So, people are clicking on things. Why are they clicking on it? How are they clicking on it? What does your cost of, your CPC, your retention, all that stuff. That stuff interests me. Looking at analytics. So, because of that, I got more into digital marketing, and here I am today as a digital marketing expert. And I say I'm a problem solver. So everyone comes to me with problems essentially. I'm not getting any visitors to my website. Uh, I'm not getting any sales on my website. Well, let's look under the hood and diagnose why. You know, I'm the mechanic of digital marketing. You know, we're going to look at your analytics and diagnose those problems. And that's essentially how you have to go and look at it. It's a problem that can be solved. You just have to know the tools, and that's why I'm presenting it to the way that I am.
Thank you. We had a couple that I pulled out so far. Let me zoom in on these for you. You answered the first one. Could
All
you
right.
also review the rule of 1/3, the design
Absolutely.
rule?
Absolutely, I can review the rule of thirds. So 3 is jarring in terms of visualization. So you want to lead a consumer, and let's pretend it's a poster, right? You have your headline, you have something going on in the middle, and then you have the end of the poster, right? And for me, I'm going to use color visualization. So everything is like black and white. However, I have some kind of jarring red as the title. Uh, my movie is called Frankie's Spooky Castle, and then below that, in theaters March 13th, PG-13. All 3 of those things are red, right? Where everything else is, you know, just black and white. What I'm doing is I'm leading the user on a journey. I'm using the rule of thirds because it's jarring, so I have 3 visual elements, and they all share the same parent color. So I'm telling a story visually, and I'm taking you on a journey, you know. So the same is true for websites. Whenever I show you something there, you'll see 3 buttons or 3 different pieces of information. If you go to the activewebgroup.com website, you see I have that little dot that's orange on the logo. You follow that over to the right, and then I have a button for contact us, whatever that CTA is. And then you follow that down, I have another conversion point that's orange. And you'll see that happen, you know, throughout the website. There's no mistake there. I'm leading you on a journey. I want you to go this way so you go down on the website. Okay, that's what I mean by rule of thirds.
We had a great
Okay.
comment from Tom about tic-tac-toe board. He's a photographer, so if you think of the rule of thirds
Yeah.
that way.
Very
And we
exactly.
are at number 3, an
Okay.
under construction GoDaddy website for travel services. Are there any specific tips for this industry you would recommend?
For travel services is tricky, right? It depends how much information you're looking to obtain from the user. And there's a lot of stiff competition in that arena digitally, right? You have Expedia, what's William Shatner one Priceline. There's a lot of them out there. And when you have some big box players, it gets hard to rank for things or hard to beat them for certain things. Because one, they've been at it for so long, but they just have so much bandwidth in terms of how big the sitemap is overall. But what you want to consider is your sitemap. As I said, you're going to want to build as big of a sitemap as possible. Isolated ads might become important for you. So, and localization. What I mean is if you're only doing this business locally instead of nationally, you think about Priceline, you know, they're an international company. But if you're only operating in, you know, where I live, Suffolk County, New York, or you're only operating in Buffalo, um, then you could stay local to that and think about your website in terms of local readability. So you're going to use a lot of vernacular that reads locally. Buffalo travel agency, travel agencies in Buffalo, Buffalo travel near me, traveling Buffalo. And then you're going to want, so that will be in the, we're starting to get into an SEO conversation here, but that will be in the URL structure within your sitemap. So um, frankiestravel.com/Buffalo Travel, right? The name of my company is buffalotravelgo.com. So these things, you know, if you could be local, that's going to be important to you in terms of dealing with some big box competition. But overall, I would say your sitemap. When you're talking about travel, you're talking about far-flung destinations and excitement and, you know, adventure. You want that to be facilitated on your website. So you don't want it to be like you know, white and boring. It doesn't want to feel like a doctor's office. It wants to feel fun and adventurous. You could have blogs that you continually talk about some of these far-flung places, right? Stories. You could link up with the photographer who was on this call. Maybe he's got some cool pictures for you, and you guys could share links back and forth, and that helps you with your domain authority. Next week's conversation. You know, there's a lot to do there. Email marketing. You have a blog. Now you're going to send it out in email. Now it's going to be on your social media. So everything kind of works 360 as an ecosystem. But again, as I said, thinking about local in terms of terminology and visual imagery, if you can, good. If you're like a national company, you're going to have some It's going to be an uphill climb. It can be done, but uphill climb. Okay. Even though I have a contact us page, should I place a call to action on my about us page? Yes. Is that link that takes you to the contact page? It can take you to the contact us page. I love having a form on the bottom of my website so that's tightly locked to my footer. Whenever I'm working back and forth with the web team here, that's one of my asks, if possible. So even if the link to contact us is in the hero image of the website, it'll drop down automatically to the footer where the contact us form is. This way, I don't have to worry about adding that to my website at all. It's always going to be there whenever I create a page, whether it be a blog or something else. That's my advice for that. Okay, is a CTA recommended for each page? Yes, yes. I want to know what page I'm on, why I'm on that page, what do I need to do here, what's the reason why I'm visiting, and people aren't going to read 50 paragraphs of information. I write 50 paragraphs of information from an SEO standpoint because I want to rank for something, but that's with the understanding that people are just going to skim through it. So for you, something big, bold that really explains what the purposes of this page are will help people understand and potentially convert. Should social media links be in the header or where? This is a question for you. Is that important to you in terms of conversion? Are you a travel industry? You want to get people to, because people only travel once a year or so, right? So your retention, they're going to come back every year, but they're not going to be continually using you for services, right? So let's say I only travel once or twice a year. I go to Disney with the kids, and I use a travel agency for that. I use my local Buffalo travel agency. Maybe a year has passed now. I'm not really thinking about Buffalo Travel anymore. Buffalo Travel Go. I'm thinking, William Shatner just sent me an email. So if social media is an important strategy towards your nurture program in that you want to continue being mentioned to your consumer, maybe not. Is email more important to you? You want to think about the path of least resistance in terms of conversion. So, if it's quickly filling out that form, that's the most important thing. If it's getting people to ring your phone, that's the most important thing. If I'm an emergency response plumber, I'm going to want to put my phone number first because people are going to call me at 2 o'clock in the morning and not fill out a form that their toilet's overflowing and wait for a call. So, and the same thing's true with social media. They're not going to click and like my post before they call me. So know what's most important, and that's going to be the most important thing you put first. You always dump it in the footer if you need to. Would you be able to review a hero image and slider? Yeah, absolutely. Send it to my email address here. Is it? You put it. I'll
Oh, I
put it
took
in.
it off the screen. Sorry, but I can put it in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the chat. Send me an email. Some people have been sending me emails back and forth regarding some stuff. I'll gladly take a look. Comment. Excellent presentation. Unfortunately, all your fantastic suggestions are leading me to a redesign. Yeah, and that happens a lot. And I mean, the reason why you could justify that is, are you getting conversions? Are people going to your website, clicking, calling, engaging with your brand? Or are you just kind of sitting, twiddling your thumbs, waiting for visitors to do something? If that's the case, there could be a reason for it. So that would lead you to a redesign and justify that. My advice in terms of that redesign, don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. Next week I'm going to talk about SEO, and if you're ranking for stuff, you're going to want to carry all that content over. Most web developers don't really care about SEO, don't really care about ROI stuff. They just care about a pretty website. And that might be detrimental to your efforts in terms of a redesign. So consider that, and also know what you're trying to do long term in terms of a website. Build something now that you just have to make modifications to a couple of years from now, because it should be an investment. You shouldn't have to redo this every couple of years, which I find is common with some of these things. So longevity is key. Yeah, and if you have any questions, again, feel free to email me on the website stuff. Okay, where are we at? Okay, I see number 9.
Number 10, or did we do number 9?
We did number 8. We're up to number 9. We deal
Okay.
mainly with very small businesses, most of who use Wix type websites. If the business grows, can that business easily switch to paid professional site? No, and that's my gripe. You can't take anything off of Wix and then apply it to like a WordPress or something that's going to be more robust in terms of CRMs and things that integrate, I'll say. So if you expand your SOPs, your standard operating procedures for your sales team, and now you've integrated like Salesforce or Pardot or something, you're not going to be able to carry it over into Wix successfully. And there's going to be other reasons why, but so that's why I always say, and it doesn't, I don't want it to sound like some kind of sales thing, but you're better off making the investment now than having to redo it again in like a year or two when you grow. So consider that as you push forward. And that's why I said, you need to know who your target audience is, and you need to have goals. Where do you see yourself a year from now, 5 years from now? If that doesn't align with your current tools and platforms, you need to make a change. If you're just starting out and only have one product, such as a book, is it okay to have a small website with very few pages of information, or is it better to wait until you have a few? If you only have one product, depends where you sell that product. If you're selling that product directly on your website, you're going to want a robust website that sells the book, even if it's only one book, because you're essentially selling, if you're the author of this book, you're selling yourself essentially. So that becomes a portfolio site to a degree. But if you're selling it on Amazon or something, which I've dealt with before, where we'll link to Amazon, they actually have really cool tools that you could place what's called an iframe on your site. So people they're shopping on Amazon, but they're doing it on your website. So that might be a tool for you. Amazon's still getting all those dollars and cents. Jeff Bezos is still flying to the moon or doing whatever he does. But it's guys like Lex Luthor. It's crazy. But back to this. But regarding your website, they'll still be interacting and engaging with your brand and your site. So there are some things you can do there. I would just need to know more in order to really answer that question for you. But I would at least have something. Hello, I'm an event planner, designer just starting out. What platform should I choose for my website? WordPress. You should go WordPress. I got nothing else to say. Go WordPress. Build a WordPress website. You have questions, let me know. WordPress. My shopping website is, and as a matter of fact, we've dealt with wedding planners, event planners, people in that space before. And there's some cool tools out there that are specific to the WordPress platform. My Shopify website is currently under construction. Fantastic. And I'm looking to launch next month or two. When should I incorporate MailChimp? Well, that's a complicated question there. Is your brand under construction? Are you currently not doing business? If you're doing business and you have an email list, you should create a MailChimp account right now and start nurturing the email list you have. I believe MailChimp, you could create a landing page, and you should be able to link that landing page to your website so it works in your vanity URL. Also with Shopify, they have an under construction page, so you could still nurture and get emails. That should be up at the least while you're building your website. If your web developer isn't doing that right now, that should be done. And then from there, you can link up to MailChimp, send them a thank you for subscribing email, and then start to build out your nurture funnel. This way you don't have to, once your website goes live, you don't have to go off to the races and start building a website and do nothing now while you're waiting for it. So you should be proactive in that. Hi, what kind of costs can a startup expect to pay for your company to set up a website, logo, brand? Okay, so expensing. Send me an email. We have various, large and small. We deal with Fortune 500. I deal with mom and pop, Frankie's Pizza Shop. We deal with it all and all types of budgets. So shoot me an email. Let's see what's viable and what can be done based on what you're trying to accomplish. If you have 5,000 SKUs, that's something I won't be able to off the hand quote. But if you're looking for a simple website, that's a different solution. So shoot me an email. What did PPC, product per customer? So PPC is pay per click. That's pay per click advertising like you would see in Google, MSN, Bing. I'm gonna get into that next week. Please join that meeting. That's the big one. That's the big meeting. Aside from the following one, which we're gonna start to really ask you guys questions, look at analytics and things you should see. But related to that pay per click, I think what you're talking about is, I don't know what you're talking about. Let me see. Q2 is SSL, the source code. Q2. Okay, I'm not wholeheartedly understanding what you're asking, but Q2, question 2. Okay, is the SSL the source code? No. SSL is your security. So whenever you either have an HTTP website, which used to be fine, but now they're HTTPS websites. And with a lot of these browsers nowadays, like Google Chrome, if you don't have an HTTPS website, it will block you from going to that website overall. And you could go to advanced settings and still visit the website, but 9 times out of 10, most consumers won't do all that. They'll say, oh, this is a sketchy website, I'm not going here. So when you purchase your hosting, your domain, you want to make sure you get an SSL website, So this way you go to HTTPS, so it's encrypted and secure if I put any information into that website. Okay.
Frank,
Yes.
the just SSL is an acronym for secure socket layer. That's all it means.
Yeah. Yeah. So it just adds a little bit of that encryption layer for your website. So yeah, but it's common nowadays. You know, most when you buy your hosting and your domain, most of the times they'll say add this on for an extra X amount of dollars. But make sure you do it. Okay. Just created a business. Congratulations, operations, supply chain, consulting firm. Recommendation for the website to start with. Okay. My first question is, are you already in the process of creating a website? Because then I have to look how that lays out. It's a little bit more, I think you're one of those that probably has to send me an email as well. But what platform should you use? So you have a lot of integrations. You might have like a 3PL, a logistics thing that needs to integrate with the back end of your website. There might be some other things that have to integrate that aren't going to integrate with some freemium models. They might not have a plugin for that or something like that. So I would have to know a little bit more about that to advise what the best strategy is. If your operations supply chain requires more user input or it has a login portal or something like that, then that becomes a custom thing. If it's not, you're just looking to build a landing page for that with no integrations, WordPress is probably 9 times out of 10 your best bet. Regarding that, you know, there's a lot of opportunity there in terms of B2B, B2B intercommunication and B2B marketing. You start to think about things like LinkedIn, you start to think about pay-per-click, but really you start to think about Bing. Bing is a search engine as well. Going to get into that next week, but Bing is a great search engine with Microsoft. If you think about the business world, I mean, I'm a Mac guy, but most of the world is still operating on a Microsoft business computer, and they're doing that 9 to 5 within their, you know, their world, wherever they live. So you'll be showing ads that time, you'll be sending emails that time, you're going to get a lot of traffic that time. And then once you start to understand those traffic patterns, it becomes, you know, just, you know, plug and play to an extent in terms of rinse, wash, and repeat, wash, rinse, and repeat, whatever. So you'll just be, you know, doing that in terms of, you know, when you see traffic patterns and allocation. Not next week, the following week, we're going to talk about analytics and what to look for and what to diagnose and how to really start to build a marketing game plan. So that's going to be a question for them.
I am going to unmute Carolyn because she had a follow-up question. Carolyn, you should be able to hit the red microphone button. There you go.
Okay, yes, thank you so much. This was incredible, very exciting. But so pay-per-click is also tracking the amount of clicks which need to be tendered in order to get to a purchase, basically. So you try to minimize the amount of steps they go through.
Correct. Well, yeah. So for pay-per-click, there's a couple things. Your cost per click. How much does it cost for the key term or that keyword group? So for me, what would I give you? Frankie's Pizzeria. Pizza near me is the term I want, but I'm using that as not exact match, so people don't type in pizza near me. You're talking about pizza plus me near me, and then when those match together, how much does that cost, that term, right, for someone to click on there? Let's say it's 50 cents per click. That's my cost per click. So I know what my cost per click is. How many clicks do I need to get for someone to go on a website and fill out a form? That's my conversion number. So if I'm paying 50 cents a click, right? It costs, let's round this up. It's $1 per click. It costs me $50 to get someone to click. Then I start to know that I have to spend $50 to get one person to click and convert. Is it worth it for me in terms of CPC? Let's say my product, my pizza is $19.95, but it costs $50 to get someone to ring my phone. It's probably not worth it. Then I look at other avenues for conversion, right? Like SEO, which might be more friendly to my budget. But if, or I can figure out how to drive down that CPC. Again, SEO, conversation for next week. But if maybe my product is $400 and I have a 40% marketing budget, then it's totally worth it, right, for $50. So you got to kind of pros and cons, and those numbers are blown out big, you know, big numbers. That's not the actual. Not scaring anyone away. They're much smaller in terms of conversion, but will depend.
So incredible, so concise. Okay, just one more quick question, because you mentioned Bing in search engines. I'm always curious about the Chinese market, the Asian market in general, and the browser systems there, and which browsers to use or to somehow make your website adaptable to, or your platform.
Okay, so regarding the website, most
accessible.
of the more advanced websites, you could put in a plugin, or the language will automatically change. So it's not really something too much to worry about. The currency should change. If you're selling stuff online, you have to make sure your payment processor will allow for currency and transactions overseas, and what that transaction rate is there. You know, there's
But
going to be.
would the HTTPS therefore also assure that
Yeah.
individuals in China would be able to, because I had friends who weren't able to go into my website or search because of the Safari or certain search engines. So
Yep. You want a secure website regardless of what you do, but also there might be some blocks in China. China itself restricts certain websites. Their government does. That's probably
right.
a whole nother presentation for a whole nother time.
There's not one server which goes around those. This is initially what I wanted to know.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. Not without getting into some deep water stuff that I don't think it's worthwhile for you as a business owner to get into. But if you
Okay.
really need to do business in China, there are probably some workarounds. That would be a question for my web development team. So shoot me an email. They're the
Okay.
brightest people I know, and I'll try to get your questions answered.
Thank you so much. Sincerely, thank you.
No
Thank
problem.
you, Carolyn, for jumping on. I appreciate that. And if you need any help with the export business side of things, you can definitely reach out to the SBDC as well. We do have someone who that is their main area where they help folks with exporting and importing. So one last one, I bought my domain through GoDaddy. Would I be able to build my website on WordPress?
Yes, absolutely. You just have to make sure your hosting is managed WordPress hosting, which GoDaddy offers, so you're set up. And I mean, regarding hosting, you know, some people love GoDaddy, some people hate GoDaddy. I mean, we even offer hosting when we host websites, which we love to do, but you know, we don't have to. They'll be fine for you. Just make sure you get the appropriate package. If you have any questions, again, shoot me an email. You have questions about building your WordPress website. I love a good WordPress website, so feel free to email me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And so do the attendees. We got tons of thank yous rolling in, especially how helpful and clear this was.
No
And
problem.
folks, you heard Scott pop on. He's also from the Active Web Group. So Scott, thank you for chiming in there.
Yeah, next session's SEO, pay-per-click. It's real ROI stuff. So now we start to talk about, you know, how do we make money here? We're talking about the nuts and bolts, you know, brand, and then, you know, which is more visual stuff. Then we talk about website, which can be visual, cannot. But now we're gonna get some customers in the door. So next week's gonna get exciting. So stay tuned. I'm excited to see you guys again.